Okay, well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. My name's Dan French. I'm founder and CEO at Consider Solutions. This is a welcome change of pace to our normal webcast. We've got a great panel for you. And as you know, what we're talking about today is what this year of 2020 is teaching us about behavioral change. And we've got a lot to, that's great. So 2019 seems a long time ago. Everyone was having a good time. We thought we didn't think anything untoward was going to happen this year. And of course, in this year of 2020, we've developed a whole new vocabulary of how we deal with business and even in life, I suggest. So you've seen some of these. It makes you wonder. We didn't worry about a lot of this so much last year. But our session today, I'm going to make some introductions to our panel. We have a great panel of 4 experts of different perspectives. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2020 journey we've all had, the 5 experiences from us. And really, this session is going to be unusual. It really is going to involve you. You won't have a chance to speak on this because it's a webcast with many of you, a couple of hundred people here on this. But there are interactive polls which we want your input on. They're all anonymous, but there's going to be a lot of polls as we go through this. We want your input to help drive the discussion and hopefully make it as valuable as possible for all of us. So that's going to be a discussion about your experiences, your responses during the year, and then we're going to finish off with some thoughts for the road ahead. So we have myself in the bottom left looking very serious, a face only a mother could love, I've been told. But the other 4, these beautiful people, are our panelists. And I will just ask them to introduce themselves. So Jürgen, would you like to say hello to our assembled group here?
Because it's you, I will do it, Dan. Yes,
thank you.
I'm a digital audit partner at PwC. And actually, it's not the IT that really drives me, it's the people behind this IT. So I'm very keen on learning about happiness, consciousness, awareness, and everything that drives us and makes us the people that we are in our lives.
Thank you. And Mark? Mark Hookey from Zurich. Can't hear you, Mark. I think you might be muted.
Oh, no, there I go. Thank you very much. Yes, I work at Swiss Re as part of the finance transformation there, working on outsourcing, the operating model, the people side of change. I also coach as well. So I've observed the impact of COVID across many countries and many people. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion today.
Thanks very much, Mark. And we also have Sylvain from Lake Geneva.
Hello, Dan. Hello, everyone. Yes, greetings from Geneva. I worked in the entertainment industry in the production as director of operation for many years, and then suddenly I changed because I was not really happy. Just to speak about what Jürgen was talking before, I was not very happy, and I changed radically to become a yoga teacher. And it's about 20 years now that I've been teaching yoga, doing yoga therapy, and I'm also working and teaching meditation at IMD Business School in Lausanne, as well as at the University of Lausanne. So it's all about wisdom on my side.
Okay, thank you, Sylvain. And Elena.
Hi everyone, my name is Elena Och. I'm a brain health coach and originally from Russia. I've been living and working in Switzerland for the past 25 years. So my passion and expertise is really in resilience and peak performance. So in my work with clients, we discover the neurodivergent brains and then use digital technology and coaching to reach, and more importantly to me, sustain the state of high performance and balance in all aspects of life. So I'm looking forward to the joint thinking and reflection session with you and my colleagues today.
Thanks, Elena. And I am Dan French. I've been around quite a long time. Many of you have known me and have met me either in person or at these webcast events. I've been variously a CEO, a business manager, a consultant, working in large multinational companies in sales and marketing, in process improvement, risk management, and technology, of course. And I try to get a little bit of time to play the guitar and drink some red wine. But as you can see, it's very dangerous to do those at the same time. So that's us. So you know what you're dealing with. This discussion is all about what's happened to us in 2020 and what we learned from it. And first of all, we've got to work out what our experience was and what our responses have been. So I'm going to ask you all a few contextual questions. So as I say, all these polls are they're anonymous, so this is just so we get aggregate responses. These first 4 polls are quickly just to give us some context and use some context about the other answers we get. So the first question is very easy. So you have a multiple choice poll coming up. In which continent do you live? Are you in Africa, America, or the Americas, I should say, Asia, Europe, Oceania, Australia? I think if you're not in one of those, you're probably in the middle of the ocean. You probably struggle to get decent bandwidth out there, I guess. So if you just quickly respond to that, you might wonder why I've only got such broad answers, and the polls can only have up to 5 answers. So we have to choose very carefully. So could you just say, where do you live? Which of these continents? Hopefully it will take you very little time to do that. If it takes you a lot of time, we're going to have problems with the other polls. So can we have a quick look at the results, please? So the 75% are in Europe and 17% in North America and a small percentage in Asia, but no discernible percentage from Africa or Australia. But that's not surprising because it's in Australia, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's fine. So the next question for you is, in which environment do you live? Do you live in the city? Do you live in the suburbs of a city? Do you live in a town or village, rural, countryside? Again, this is just contextual. Could you just say which of those do you live in? That'd be great. So is it city, suburbs, town, village, rural, countryside? If you could give us that. This may help some of the later discussions. It may not, but let's just answer the question. Anyway, so let's have a look at the results, see what we've got here. So this is kind of interesting. So actually, it's pretty evenly spread. 31% the city, 27% rural, and 24%. Yeah, okay, so pretty much evenly split between those 4, which is fine. Thank you. And next question is, in what domestic situation do you live? Are you single, living on your own? Are you living with a partner but no children? Lucky you. Living with a partner and children? Living with a partner but your children left home? Or living in a multi-generational household with children, parents, grandparents, or whatever? Could you just respond to that, please? Let's have a look. See, that should be pretty straightforward. You want to phone home to confirm which one of those you're in? That might be good. But, might have changed actually if you have the phone home. But yeah, so can you just respond to that? Let's have a look at the answers here. So most people are, but 40% of you are living with partner and children. And then you have 25% living with partner and no children. And then it's pretty even between single, living multi-generational, living with partner, children left home. So that's kind of interesting. So, okay, thank you for that. And then the other question, contextual question, is what's been your workplace situation since March? So assuming most of us got seriously affected with this lockdown business in March, but some earlier, I know. So A, were you working at home 100% since March? B, working at home initially, but now occasionally at the company office or workplace? 3, working at home initially, then 100% at the company office or workplace? 4, working at company office, workplace throughout, which probably means you're a healthcare worker. Or 5, alternating between working at home and company workplace as guidance changed or as you felt. Let's see what we got. See what we got here. So that's pretty much. So it's basically since March. I've been working at home ever since then, pretty much. Have you did at home, then moved to occasional office work, then or working at home and then 100% office work? And I think the rest is self-evident. You want to just respond to that, please? Let's have a look at the results. So 64% have been working home completely since March, 21% with a bit occasional office work, and 9% alternating. Okay, that's interesting. It gives us a bit of perspective on everyone's experience. Right, now, as you've heard, I'm in London. We've got people on the lake in Geneva, in Zurich, and other parts of Europe. And we've all got to be sitting comfortably. Now, Jürgen will be sitting in a very robust Germanic chair. Some of them will be sitting in a very soft beanbaggy, hippie beanbag. And of course, Sylvain will be in his gold bed, lounging in his gold bed in Geneva. But I want to make sure you are also sitting comfortably before we get to the next piece, because this is where we're getting into the real meat of it. I'm going to ask you this question, then we're going to respond with our views or our experiences. So this is a very simple question, but I guess the answer is more tricky. So for you personally, what's been the impact of 2020? Has it been disruptive positively, as in made your life disruptive, but it's made your life better? Negatively disruptive, as in disruptive, made your life worse, or not really disruptive at all? Very simple question, but you might want to think about it. So you choose one of those, and I'm fascinated by the answer to this because I'm finding lots of different people have different experiences. So in general, in the main, is it positively disruptive, negatively disruptive, or not disruptive at all? 2020. Can we see what you think? Wow, okay, so 53, over half of you say it's been positively disruptive, 41% say it's been negatively disruptive, and 7% of you say it's not disruptive at all. Okay, that is kind of interesting. So 53% say it's been a positive impact on you, 41% negative impact on you, and 7% not impacted. Now, we're not going to talk about that specifically because now I want to hear the experiences of our panel. So I'm going to put the log fire on as we hear the experiences from our panel. So I'd like to ask you, Sylvain, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience of 2020, please?
Yes. You know, actually, I'm very surprised and very happy to see that 53% responded that way with a positive outcome of 2020 in a way, because that shows that we've got a lot of yogis around. You know, in yoga, we used to say, we always say that everything that happens to us happens for a good reason. Hello? Yes?
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there. That was
So we say everything happens for a good reason, and I consider that this experience, this challenge was happening for us to teach us something, and we've taken the best out of that. And in my situation, I was very happy not to have to commute so much, to go to Lausanne with the train and come back. So I spent more time with my daughter, and I had more time to meditate for myself. I was changing my way of working, so I had to find a new space for creativity. A whole new experience was happening. That was quite positive. On the other hand, as well, it was remembering the period of Ebola and SARS and other critical situations like the financial crisis or even AIDS period. You know, all of this moment in my past, I was thinking, what is new now? Well, what is different also from the past? And it made me understand more, working on awareness. So 2020 was a beautiful opportunity to work on awareness, and it helped me get rid of this mask. You know, you spoke in your introduction about the mask of calm, covering true feelings. Well, I was not working on any feeling in a way that I was hiding anything. I had time to face all my feelings. That was positive.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sylvain. That's quite an experience. Elena, what was your 2020 experience? What is your 2020 experience?
Well, I represent the 69% with a partner and children, and with 3 school children, we had a major routine disruption. And disrupted routines plus a health threat brings any brain into a distress mode. And this distress mode is a dead zone, really, when it comes to the ability to generate creative insight, and your learning ability is impaired, and the increased cognitive bias makes decision-making suboptimal. So we knew what the priority was. And once the new routines are established and the fear quieted, we can benefit from the shake-up the situation brought with it. And so after that, the rest of the year was hugely productive for me, with creative collaboration flourishing and several innovative concepts developed. So that was professionally very positive experience. And another thing is, I think we underestimated is that I guess there are millions of women out there who thought they had it figured out, the right balance between professional interest and professional commitments and the family, taking care of the family. And with suddenly all your family being at home and wanting to eat, plus 5 people wanting to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm sure many found themselves just cooking most of the time. So I think there was an underestimation of the impact of that on as well. But otherwise, professionally productive.
It gets expensive when everyone's eating at home as well. Mark, your experience.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And 10 weeks in to the lockdown, I was having a coaching meeting and I turned the video on, and the first thing the coachee says to me is, "Holy crap, you look bad." And for me, that was a big wake-up call, because I had thought I was doing excellently. I was squeezing in back-to-back meetings, at least 10 hours a day, every day. I thought I was doing really well. However, actually, I was doing terribly. And, you know, my motivation was at an all-time low. I was finding any kind of distraction during the meetings. I wasn't eating well. I hadn't exercised in 10 weeks. So I was actually in a bad place. And it reminded me of the story of the boiled frog. If you boil some water, throw a frog in it, the frog's going to immediately jump out. But if you take the frog and place them in cold water and then slowly turn up the heat, the frog will sit there until it's too late. And that was me. I was the frog. And it wasn't until I had that wake-up call that I was actually able to change my behaviors and get myself out of it. So that was my experience.
Right, you sound very knowledgeable about these this frog boiling activity. So I hope that's not one of your
I
hobbies.
haven't practiced it, that's for sure.
Okay, Jürgen, what was your experience?
Each time when I see Mark now, I will think about a frog, I'm sure. You know, I belong to the 25 who live at home with no kids, with a partner, and actually my job usually takes me out to a lot of travel. So all this travel time falling away, I actually invested into my physical, mental, spiritual well-being, and I initiated my wife also to meditate with me. We went out to walks instead of sitting in a train or in a plane. So it was a hugely positive experience, also spending this time together. We joke about it and we say it was the right preparation for our upcoming retirement. We can make it together. So really positive.
That's great. So my experience was kind of a little different in that when we hit the lockdown, it was we kind of all knew it was happening. So when the day came, we all went home, and I found myself quite uplifted and quite motivated from a business point of view, how quickly we just spun to working remotely. Everything worked fine. There were no issues. I think we had one minor technical issue, but everything worked great. Our clients were all working remotely. So, you know, everything worked pretty well. And it was only about, I mean, I got into the habit very quickly, and it got me thinking about habits. I got into this new habit very quickly. So I get up at, you know, get up early in the morning, probably get up about 6:45 maybe, and then have a cup of coffee and then go straight into the back room, which is an office, but work all day, and then come down and then have dinner with the family. What I found after a while is I realized that I'd been inside the house for 4 or 5 days and hadn't left at all, hadn't even left the house in 4 or 5 days. So therefore I hadn't done any exercise, wasn't eating particularly well, and there was this kind of complete, you know, sort of high intensity adrenaline of work, followed immediately by having a meal, followed by going to bed and doing it all again. And I started to worry about that. So I had to sort of force myself into yet another habit of sort of forcing myself into a different exercise regime. And then I started to think that although everybody, and I know everyone feels differently about this in their own experience, but most people feel that they are productive working at home. So I was kind of conscious I was getting a lot of tasks completed. I was very efficient. but I was getting concerned that I was less effective because the incidental learning and some of the collaborative activities were less, that they didn't seem to be working well. And so I did notice that some of that was going downhill a bit. So to me, it's been kind of like waves. It started off very positive, then went negative. And then as soon as I could, I think it was July, I came back to our London office when the rules changed. And I found that very healthy, being able to walk to the station, get the fresh air, get a train, not many people on it, walk to the office. I found that kind of, that punctuation of the day really, really helpful. So that was my little experience. So those 5 experiences, I'm sure one or many of those relates to everyone here too. So thanks for that. So I've got 5 little questions for you all, and we're going to get all 5 questions done, and then we're going to comment on them. So there's 5 things about this change, this lockdown, this change of behavior. We're going to ask you about various things. So quickly, what has 2020, this COVID pandemic, had on the quality of your sleep? Is your sleep better, worse, or there's been no significant impact? Just generally speaking, since March, is it more positive, negative, or no significant impact? You just give that a go. Let's have a look at the results. So, right, 51% no impact at all, and then almost, there's a 28% positive, 21% negative. Okay, interesting. Okay, then we're going to go to the next one. What's this year, what's the impact been on your diet, your food? Have you been eating more healthily, as in it's positive, less healthily, negative, or no significant impact? Let's have a look. So it's just your diet, your food. Wow, that is straight down the middle, basically 33% on all large, 33, 34, 31. So even. So what's interesting to me is a lot of these things, there aren't any dominant themes. We all react very differently. So that's across the board there. So the same number of people feel positively as feel negatively about that food, has no significant impact. Next question, impact on your mood. Has your impact on your mood been positive, negative, or no impact at all this year? So general mood, positive, negative, or impact, or no significant impact? Let's have a look at that. Let's see what you say there. So negative, 52% of people say it's had a negative impact on their mood. 38% say no significant, and only 10% say it's had a positive impact. That's kind of interesting. So let's have a look. Next one. What impact has COVID had on your physical exercise? You know the impact it had on mine. Has it been positive, negative, or no significant impact? Let's have a look at that. So add your exercise this year. Has it got better, got worse, or had no impact at all? Let's have a look at the results. Wow, this is so 40% positive, 40% negative, and then the balance on no significant impact. So 42, it's all pretty much. So again, split down the middle there. And then one final one before we discuss this. What impact has this had on your perceived energy levels? Is it positive, negative, or no significant impact? Let's have a look at those results. Your perceived energy levels. Right, negative 45% negative, 21% positive, 34% no difference. So kind of this is really interesting. So I am going to ask, let's have a little bit of a thought about this. So Sylvain, what's your take on this? We've got, so just to give you some reminders here, there were 50% of people thought it had no impact on their sleep, but even the balance of them, it was even positive and negative. Diet, food was pretty even against positive and negative. Mood, 50% of people said it was negative. Physical exercise, pretty even between positive and negative. And energy levels, the majority, well, the biggest single group, 45%, was negative. What would you say to that?
Yeah. I would look at the positive energy rate, 21%. It requires a lot. It requires a lot for people to observe what their needs are, and what do they need in that case. What people need to feel positive, to feel good. What do they need to feel happy, or what are the obstacles? And that's something that we're working permanently with yoga. We're working on awareness. And this poll is interesting because it shows us whether we are half and half, we are responding to a situation or reacting to a situation. And that's something that is going to help us a lot to feel balanced and to live in harmony. That's what yoga is about. When you ask all those questions, we are looking at the sleep, the quality of sleep, the food, the mood and physical exercise and energy level. That's exactly what yoga is about. But we have to also develop this level of awareness, and that's crucial. Hopefully now we feel ready for a different challenge next time. Hopefully it's not going to be a virus, but with the experience, with the memory that we develop, and with all those challenges that we are facing, we increase our level of awareness. And I think that that has to change through the years.
Yeah, good point. Mark, what would you say to those interesting perspectives?
Yeah, I think building on what Sylvain was talking through there and the answers to the questions, it's clear that everyone is impacted very differently, but it's a very personal, individual way that we're impacted based on our context, I guess. And I've spoken to many people that are struggling, especially with losing energy, and helping them understand why are they losing energy, identifying the factors that go into the reduction of energy, but then also trying to identify solutions to that, where we can bring energy back. People that have been procrastinating over delivering presentation, working with them on their discipline to how they can really go forward and achieve their goals.
Okay, thank you. I noticed we're getting a little bit of echo, so I know this is contrary to what I said at the beginning, but for the panelists, could you mute yourselves until I ask you to comment? Because I think we're getting some echo back. And then I think that'll make the quality better. But thank you, Sylvain and Mark. Right, we have another question for you all. Now, hopefully what you've heard from Sylvain and Mark, and also the results of those polls, I wonder if that's a surprise to you. I wonder if, like me, to start with, I assumed everyone felt the same about this. But it's very clear that different personalities and different behavior types have very different reactions to this enforced behavior change. So I don't know whether you find this surprising or it's what you expected. But we have another poll for you, right? So this is an assertion. The assertion is, I am more concerned for my own health since the COVID crisis started. Do you strongly agree with that, agree with it, disagree, or strongly disagree? So concerned for my own health. So let's just have a look and see what you think about that. I am more concerned. I strongly agree with that. I agree with it. I disagree. Or I strongly disagree. Let's see what we have here. Let's have a look at the results. So 51% agree with that. 23% strongly. So basically 3/4 of you agree with it. 21% disagree, and 6%. So okay. So broadly speaking, 3/4 of you have been more concerned for your own health since COVID crisis started, and 25% haven't. Now, what would be interesting is to work out the ages, but we haven't got that data. Anyway, so with that in mind, Elena, what would you say about that? Concern for our own health. 75% agreeing with that assertion.
Well, I saw the 74% and said, okay, at least I'm not the only one. So since early years, I had scored highest on all existing measures of worry. So that was not new to me. But now I have a 3-step tool to turn my natural worrying into a positive behavioral change. And the step 1 for me is always identify and verbalize the thought. Right, what is it that I'm thinking now? And step 2, ask, how is this thought useful to me now? And if the answer is not useful, then go to step 3, which is replace with a more useful thought. And in my case, it was, there must be 2-3 things I can do this week which will contribute to me maintaining good health. And then my brain does the rest, right? So once you have that thought, the rest of the associations follow naturally. And surely enough, there were a couple of things I could do and making me feel better and healthier.
Thanks. So some of it's about perception, your worry, and some of it is what the raised risk might be. Jürgen, what would you say to that?
I'm maybe on the opposite of Elena. I'm extremely positive, and when I was talking about my health, I said never ever would there be place in my body for cancer or any other of these illnesses. With COVID, I from the beginning said this is a little bit different, and I'm concerned, and I take the right measures. And I compare it a little bit like with, I have a lot to do with cybersecurity. And also there we actually find a lot of people who think that's all not happening to me, to my organization. But once then you have it, it's very differently. And I spoke with a lot of people who were very proud of not being concerned for their health, but after they actually had it, they said it was a different animal that I was thinking it would be.
Yeah, that's a good analogy there, Jürgen. I think until things hit you, you sometimes don't worry about them. Okay, so here's a related question, but I think this is subtly different. I am more concerned for the health of my relatives and friends since the COVID crisis started. So it's not about me, it's about my relatives and friends. Do you strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree with that? So more concerned about health of relatives and friends. So can we see what you think about that, please? So 59, so best part of 60% agree with that. 39%, well, basically, it's most people do. As 2% disagree. So pretty much everybody agrees with that. So Elena, what would you say to that?
Well, feeling concerned for the health of my children, elderly parents, and many friends reminded me of the situation I saw so many times in organizations during significant change. Some teams would be doing okay, apprehensive and somewhat positive about the change, and while other teams would show and express very clear signs and words of distress and loss of confidence. And interesting, for me, interesting thing was that this difference between teams correlated with the emotional state of a team leader. So a worrying and very concerned team leader would have a worrying, concerned, distressed team. So for me, the lesson was clear. If I want my family to feel positive and hopeful, I have to cultivate that state of hopeful apprehension in me, and that's on a daily basis.
That's an interesting point. Jürgen, your thoughts there?
I would actually look at this result with a second thought to give to everyone, to say, we all seem to be concerned, and at the same time, there is more and more resistance about taking the right measures of keeping the social distance, putting the mask on, and then the healthiness. So we are concerned about relatives and friends, but is that actually going further? And this is maybe a good point for you, Sylvain, to build on that.
Yes, because actually this virus, with the words of the philosopher Alexander Jolien, he says that this virus should be eradicated by another virus, and the virus of solidarity, compassion, and empathy. That's helping us go towards something bigger than us. That's very important. And on the other side, it's also important because having empathy and compassion for others is creating and building a different hormonal situation within. So we are strengthening our immune system with compassion and with empathy. It's also building this notion of happiness. So it's an important tool to eradicate all the bad impacts of the virus, to build on compassion and solidarity and empathy.
Thanks, Sylvain. It's an interesting thought. Just before we go to the next poll, I will just say or remind you that this is, so we're trying to make this interactive. So the polls are one mechanism. There's going to be another mechanism at the end of this, which will be in about 15 or 20 minutes. But you also have a question and answer panel on your GoToWebinar desktop. Although we won't have time to answer any questions in the stream, please make any comments or questions you have on that, because we're going to collect them together at the end and share thoughts on those. And we've also got an interesting end of webcast unusual poll. I'll leave that hanging in the air for you. So feel free to raise questions in that panel, or just observations or comments. Interested also in your feelings about some of the topics and comments you're hearing today. So here's an interesting one. I feel safe, secure, and have trust in my employer company. Do you strongly agree with that, disagree, strongly disagree? Now, I remind you, these are anonymous, and close the door if you don't want anybody to see your response. So yeah, do you feel safe, secure, and trusting in your employer and your company? So strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Let's see what we think about that. Let's have a look at the results. So 47% agree, 24% strongly agree, and 14% each disagree and strong. So a quarter of you are very concerned that you don't really feel safe, secure, and have trust in your employer or company, which in these days I'm not surprised about at all, to be honest. We're in a very we know this health crisis is only part of a much bigger, an even bigger thing, which is an economic crisis we're in as well. But Sylvain, would you like to make some comments on that? I think you might be muted.
Sorry, yeah. Yes, when I hear about feeling safe and feeling secure, it makes me think of fear, basically fear of losing. And that's something we can really point out and work on it. It's everything is changing permanently in our life, and most of the time, if we are running and the world is running, we are in an acceleration world. We are not facing and looking at things as they are, and it's the lack of awareness is not helping us, because we don't see things changing permanently, and they are changing. So we should be ready for any situation, and there's a way for that there's a way to look at that on a daily basis and to get trained for that. It's our own education to looking at fear differently, and also the fear of losing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mark, what's your view?
Yeah, I think Sylvain's hit the nail on the head with the fear topic, and I wonder if it's very dependent on your own employment situation as well. I have many friends that are independent consultants and contractors, and they've been devastated by the current situation, really losing a lot of work. I also have many friends in big corporates where I've had some really warming stories of the corporates really trying very hard to ensure that no jobs are lost. However, I do hear a lot of concern and fear about the potential of jobs being lost in the new year. And maybe I'll even link that back to Eleanor's point around and her approach of replacing those fearful thoughts then with more positive thoughts going into that as well.
That's an interesting point. I mean, certainly during the lockdown, a lot of the focus was on people working in retail, in hospitality, in many of these sort of directly consumer touching environments being at risk. But it's become very obvious that we're all at risk in one way or another. So it's kind of, but as Sylvain says, we've got to be ready for change. So easier said than done, maybe. Here's another poll. Again, you might want to close the door. My spouse or primary partner relationship has improved during lockdown. So I strongly agree with that, I agree with that, or I disagree, I strongly disagree. It's anonymous, nobody's going to know what you said, but it's interesting to see what has happened in our lives, our personal lives. So my primary partner relationship has improved during lockdown. Strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Now you're working at home, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments for this answer. So let's have a look at the answers. So yes, so 50% strongly agree. So obviously you're working in a communal space. 22%, sorry, 50% agree, 22% strongly agree, 22% disagree, and 6% strongly disagree. Well, yeah, that's pretty much across the, well, it's across the map, but most people feel strongly about that. So, Elena, what would you say about this?
I would say that it's representative of the anecdotal evidence we all know, right? And we know from many examples we encounter in our lives that crisis can either bring people closer together or lead to aggravation of the existing problem. And I think that's the results are very representative of that. So what helped us was to invest time into discovering and formulating our needs, and at the same time trying to go deeper and connect on the beliefs level, on the premises level. It seemed odd at the beginning to start, after many years together, to start asking your partner what they believe to be fundamentally true about the world or about certain aspects of life. But I think it is an important step to make, and it created a stronger relationship and also was a good practice of assumption validation, really.
Okay, thank you. Sylvain, your view on that?
Oh, yes. You know, when I hear about relationship, I always think of this sentence that comes through meditation, that is, see things as they are and not as it suits you. And in terms of relationship, if you're surprised because it doesn't suit you, see things as they are. I'm sorry, it's not. I hope it's not too provocative, but if you don't live it well, understand what's wrong and see, once again, we are talking about awareness, what is wrong, or see things at least as they are in your relationship. It has to see with attraction and also with attachment. If you're attached to someone to the point of suffering, it might be an issue, and those situations may clarify things, you know. And I don't mean that you don't have to be detached completely, but you have to be in harmony with the person, but also in harmony with yourself. And I believe that's a little bit of the yogic perspective on this one, on the relationship. Don't lose yourself, but be fair and be true and look at things as they are. Look at your relationship as it is and not as you want it to be. And those situations of lockdown, they show up everything. Unfortunately, it brings violence, it brings, you know, domestic violence, and we've seen that in many countries. And that's one more opportunity to change, but it's awfully difficult. You know, we know how it's difficult to go to the police station and declare that you've been abused, for example, and that's a real challenge.
Thanks, Sylvain. So it's a question of seeing your life as reality rather than just as hope. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, okay, we have another question. So my relationship with my work colleagues has improved during lockdown. Do you strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? So this is your work colleagues, many of whom you haven't seen other than through Zoom, Teams, or Skype, or something else. Has it improved? Strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Let's have a look at the answers here. So disagree, 47% say it's definitely not been great. 36% agree with it. 16% strongly agree, and 2% strongly disagree. And right, well, so that's probably not a surprise, given that we have our relationship with our work colleagues has changed dramatically due to distance. So, Elena, what would you say to that? I think you're on mute, Elena.
I am really surprised about this clear cut of agreeing that it improved and disagreeing that it didn't improve. So I'm just thinking about that, but maybe I have a simple and short reflection on that is I wouldn't be able to answer that question whether it's improved or not. But what I can surely say that my relationship with my colleagues has developed. It's developed into a different form and in different quality.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to put positive or negative on it.
I suspect, without putting words in people's mouths, that that's related in part to the fact that during lockdown, because of our kind of improved efficiency and work through web meetings, it's made our relationship with our colleagues much more transactional around a task rather than relationship oriented. Whereas the workplace is more than just transactions. So that's just a hypothesis, might be wrong. But Mark, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think maybe to add, and this may be just my observation, maybe not very scientific, but I really see a difference between those people that I know that are more extroverted versus those that I know of are more introverted. And I've seen that, those that I know that are more extroverted have actually struggled more with maintaining relationships with colleagues because of a lack of the face-to-face interaction, where those that I know are more introverted have been less effective. And I've taken that into account and recognizing that with the work with certain people, and I found that just recognizing that can help.
Right, that's a very good point. It's an interesting response to that one there. And it's also interesting to me how these various relationship questions vary. They're not all in the same dimension. You might expect all relationships to go one way or the other way, but no, that's not the case. So poll number 8, I think we only got 1 or 2 more after this. So how would you rate your level of self-discipline during 2020? And you're going to understand why we're dealing with this in a minute, but your self-discipline, which is an ugly word for many of us who don't have much of it, but how do you rate your level of self-discipline during 2020? Very strong, fair, or poor. We know having self-discipline is a good thing, but whether we actually have it or not is a separate thing. But do you rate your level of self-discipline as very strong, fair, or poor? And maybe you might want to consider that relative to your historical perspective, whether it's very much stronger, about the same, or worse. But let's have a look at the answers to that, because this is very interesting. So 35% have strong self-discipline, 18% very strong, 29% poor, sorry, 29% fair, and 18% poor. So again, it's pretty much, there's not an awful lot to call between those people who feel strong about it and those who feel it is weak or weaker. So Sylvain, you're a man of self-discipline. What do you think about that?
Yeah, self-discipline is a tricky subject. It's actually, let's see on what we're talking about with the self-discipline. Is it about performing? And if it's performing, is it by running, weightlifting, beer drinking? How are you going to be very disciplined? I think on our level, it's about the mind. About your level of focus and awareness. At IMD Business School, for example, we teach meditation, and that's probably much more difficult than running a marathon. And we work with key people on how they reject things or how they observe, accept, and adjust to situations. In other words, we really focus through self-discipline on how to respond to situations rather than react. It's incredibly difficult and probably more than running 10Ks every day. But that's really where it starts increasing. If you get ready for a marathon, it might take you 6 to 8 weeks. But to work on your mind, it takes longer than this, but it's forever that you're changing. And that's the subject for today, changing your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Sylvain. Jürgen, what do you think about this? You might be on mute, Jürgen.
My self-discipline is actually doing a roller coaster. In some areas, I would consider it very strong. And then there was the coffee machine behind the place where I was working from home. And coffee was one of my things that I needed to change a couple of years ago, and I did very successfully. But now was the coffee machine behind me, and I was starting drinking coffee, and that was normal. And I needed to raise my awareness, and I was starting eating cookies and chocolate, all things that I had abandoned and got under control with my self-discipline. So they were back, and it needed a couple of weeks actually to become aware of these changes, and then go back and say, no, I can do this, even if the temptation is actually looking at me all the time. It's about becoming aware of things that you are finally that things that you are thinking. That's the self-discipline that you need to develop.
That's interesting. I can remember when I was once training to do a marathon, and if you looked at me, you wouldn't think I could ever have even considered doing a marathon. I'm the antipathy of a marathon runner, but I tried to do this, and I remember the runs being very hard. Every time I was going for a run, oh, I don't want to do this. Last thing I want to do. A friend of mine told me, he said, don't think about the run, just think about the way you feel at the end of it. And that allowed me to develop better self-discipline. But as you can tell by looking at me, that didn't last very long. So, but anyway, moving on, this is an interesting poll. So what helps you most during these months of uncertainty and change in 2020 to keep your focus, mood, and energy up? Now, choose all that apply. This is a multiple choice. So 5 things: family, friends, practical organization, structure, prioritization of your life, meditation, relaxation, exercise, or Netflix, Prime, movies, YouTube, distraction, music, whatever. And there's only 5, so you choose all that apply, and then we're going to have a very interesting spin on this in a few minutes before we close. So don't lose faith, don't lose self-discipline. You've got to push through to the end. So you can select all of those that help you keep your focus, mood, and energy up in this year of 2020. So select on the ones you want. There's 5 there. You can't have all 5, really. I mean, that's cheating. Maybe 4. Maybe 3, but whatever. So let's have a look at the results of that. So 77% family and friends, 68% exercise, 49% practical organization and structure. That's kind of interesting. 45% Netflix and all that, and then meditation 36%. So that's kind of interesting. So as I say, we're going to get into a little bit more detail about this, but Mark, what do you think about what we've just heard there?
Yeah, it's really interesting, the spread. I'm an extrovert, so I need to get my energy from working with or being with other people. So I've certainly made the time to set up virtual coffee sessions with friends and colleagues so that I can gather a bit of energy from that. I've made sure that I book some time in my diary for breaks and lunch and things like that, so being much more structured about my time, and certainly exercise has given me some energy back.
Right. Elena, would you like to say a few words on that?
For me, I guess this was practical organization. Out of these 5, if I have to choose just to optimize the energy, really, but more importantly for me was what Silvan was talking, is the shining the light of consciousness on what my attention goes to. So managing attention, and most importantly, establishing good habits.
Okay, thank you. Now, I was going to ask all of our panelists to talk about this, but I'm going to move on to some closing thoughts because I'm conscious of time. So in terms of what we've learned, and I hope some of this has been interesting to you, because it's certainly been a bit enlightening to me about benchmarking how I react to things against how other people react to it. So a few thoughts for the road ahead. So we asked the panel for some thoughts. I'm going to ask you just to give us like 20-30 seconds maximum on your thoughts on this, because we've got to get to the final point before we close out the hour. But these wonderful people. So Mark, give us some perspectives. What's all this about?
Yeah. I'd like to bring back the change curve, because we all go through it. You know, some of us go through it very fast, like Jürgen, who was able to turn it into a positive. Some, like myself, get stuck in the valley of despair. And I think it's useful not only for ourselves, but also for our colleagues and our employees, and how we can help them through that change curve as best as possible. And I think it's also a good reminder how change does impact our behaviors.
Great, that's a good thought for us. Jürgen.
You know, how can I not talk about happiness? And these are actually the happiness hormones. And I would say, you know, do more of the things that make you happy. And for some people, it is happiness resonates with smile. For some other people, it resonates with freedom and calm. So do more of the things that help you, and keep the stress, the anger, and the fear as good as you can out of your life. And Silvan and I, we work on many situations together. The right thoughts, the right speech, the right action. Bring these things in line, and here you go.
Great, great recommendation. Silvan.
Yeah, well, you know, looking at the activity of yoga is developing awareness. And when you develop awareness, you work on your needs. That's actually here the pyramid of needs, as you might know it. Basically, when it's challenging, look at your real needs. And it's, I remember from my years in business, we could do some SWOT analysis. You remember that? And you know that. And in yoga, we do it, we transform it into a SWOT analysis. We still work on strength, on weaknesses, but we also work on ambitions, our own ambitions, and also our needs. Once we work on our needs, we basically see if we need so many things to be happy. What do we really need to be happy? Is it 2 houses, 3 cars, and 35 pairs of shoes? So we don't know. A couple of beers might be enough, or just a very simple a smile might be enough. And looking at that very closely is one of the keys to grow and to reach this self-actualization level.
Thank you, Silvan. And Elena.
Well, for me, is that just to remember that the brain wants to turn every behavior, in some way rewarding behavior, into a habit as soon as possible. So it happens much faster than we consciously can perceive. And so complex activation patterns in several networks of the brain work together and to sustain established patterns. And so if you read somewhere that behavioral change is hard, it's true. So, and if you want to change your behavior or behavior in your team, the first place to start is not the behavior, and neither are the feelings. So actually, the first place to start is looking and challenging the thoughts you might have. And thinking differently will make you feel differently, and feeling differently will make you act differently. And so if you want to optimize that and optimize how you build new habits, you can find the best tips on this in James Clear book, I think, Atomic Habits.
Great. I'm a great believer in James Clear, so thank you for that, Elena. My few thoughts are, we know about habits. We are humans, we're creatures of habits. So whether you're a flock of birds, or you're the wildebeest in the on the African plains, or whether you're the herd of humans, we all kind of have group behaviors and group habits. And a lot of people say it takes 3 weeks to 3 months to create a habit. Well, I found out it takes 3 days to create a habit in lockdown. So it's just reminded me that we are creatures of habit, and everything that Elena and Silvan, Jürgen, and Mark have said are absolutely right on the money, and we should bear that in mind. But we are just an animal, a group of sort of well-evolved herd of animals. And on that note, before we close, so we're going to close down in a minute, but please take 30 seconds. When I close this down, that poll we had about what helps you most to keep focus, mood, and energy up, please do this. Just enter in a few words in your own words. You're going to be able to do this. Just a few words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, whatever, not too many. And we're going to do something interesting with it and share it with you all. So, and I think you'll find that very useful. So what's going to happen is when we close this down in a matter of seconds, this is going to pop up on your screen that says the organizer has ended the webinar. You're going to click on the close, and then your your browser is going to present you with a screen with this little thing, which is a survey. What helps you most keep focus, mood, and energy up? And in that little box, just type some words that you think most reflect those things in your own words. I'm going to do something useful with that. It's going to be anonymous. I think you'll find it enjoyable. I hope you found this enjoyable. I hope you found it thought-provoking. And I certainly want to thank Sylvain, Elena, Mark, Jürgen, and myself. If you want to talk to any of these people, that's their email addresses. I'm going to close the webcast now so you get that little panel for you to enter your few words. Thank you very much indeed. And it's been good to talk to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.